Ade Mara is a fascinating prospect. Michigan center transfer from UCLA. And yes, part of it is because he just makes insane behind the back flashy passes like this. He has a flair for entertaining plays where he's just going to kind of fake out the defense right here, flipping it behind his back to Merez. And Mara's been an intriguing prospect for me. I remember seeing this awesome visualization by David Lee on Twitter. He had Mara fifth on his tentative board, really, high on his passing and his rim protection. I was kind of surprised by this. I think David's really smart, and I hadn't thought of Mara that highly. I was pretty high on him in 2023. I had him in the lottery. This is just hilarious board, just absolutely hilarious. I had Mara top 5, top 6 pretty early, and then he just kind of didn't play a ton really. But at Michigan, he's getting his chance, and my God, it's been awesome. Definitely some downs as well, but when he's making crazy shit like this lefty whip pass, this is one of the craziest plays of the cycle so far. This might be the craziest play of the cycle so far. And if you're excited to talk more about Ade Mara, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If everyone watching liked and subscribed, that would tell the YouTube algorithm that my videos, hey, these guys are worth watching and worth pumping out to more people, and that helps me make more content. But anyways, Ade Mara, he flies too close to the sun sometimes, and he turns the ball over a ton, which we'll talk about. But insane, getting pinned in the corner, whips it through defenders to Yaxel, absolute perfect dime in the pocket. And this reminded me of this UCLA pass. He had some crazy flashes and was really impactful on a permanent basis at UCLA, but a similar play here against a double team, threading the ball around this defender's head to kick it out to Mac for the wide open three. Just really impressive stuff. And then he gets his hand on the ball for an offensive rebound like he often does. Easy to see his passing talent for a true 7'3" player with those highlights. And he's a really excellent short roll player as well. This is going to be really great in the NBA against blitzing and trapping teams and slipping against switches. He's so quick processing the help defender step up. He notices this defender is staying put. He's not helping down quickly enough, and he's going to drop it off with his left hand to Johnson for the wide open layup right there. Such a quick processor, and he is turning the ball over a absolute ton. He is sixth, I believe. Yeah, sixth in high major conference players in turnover rate. Insane turnovers at the moment, but I think a lot of them are just he's dropping the ball, and he does have shaky hands. That's going to have to improve, but I do think this is going to regress back to the mean. And stuff like this, where I'm not necessarily concerned about physicality or Mara making an incorrect read or a bad decision as a passer. Where he just does a pound dribble and loses the ball. I don't really know what that's about. That's not a great thing by any means, but I think it's less concerning than a physicality or processing limitation. There's just a lot of weird turnovers on his tape, but I do think there are some legit problems against double teams where he does really like to hold the ball, and part of it makes sense. He can hold the ball above everyone's head like he's playing against children and scan and wait for something to come open, and eventually he ends up finding Johnson on this little behind the back, which could have turned into something, but he ends up traveling there. It's hard to hold your pivot foot, and you can see his pivot foot slides a little bit right there. That was definitely a travel, and that's just a tough place to be. His scoring, though, has improved, and that was my main worry. He's playing more physically. This is just a great example of his impact. Mara catching up high, finishing 7'3" with great touch and skilled. And I think he's playing with more physicality this year as well. And his defense has been exceptional. We're going to see him make a play in this Wake Forest game, which truly was one of the better games I've scouted, point blank, period. Really good work in drop coverage right here. Initially, he's showing to the ball handler, but he's not too high so he can recover back to the roller, blocks that shot with his left hand, which is the closer hands. And I've talked about how a trait of great rim protectors is blocking the ball early so they can keep the ball in bounds and try to allow for possession. Mara almost does that, but he does a good job getting his hand on the ball early. And I really mean it when I say that Wake Forest game was crazy. I've talked about like my net impact plays charting, where I basically watch all these guys play and tally up their positive and negative plays to see who's doing the most in a game, not just beyond the box score. And this game against Wake Forest, literally the highest charted game against the high major college team I've ever done in the last 2 seasons. And yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, he had a crazy box score in that game, I think, as well. I'm pretty sure he had like 16 rebounds, 16 points. Yeah, it was 18 points, 8 defensive rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, 5 blocks, a steal, 6 assists, only 3 turnovers, 8 of 11 from 2, 6 dunks. Like, absolutely ridiculous performance from Mara. And we're going to see him continue to dominate. And this little sequence is not over. We saw the finish. This is all one sequence. These last couple plays, Mara defending the inbound. How the hell are you going to pass over him? Passing over Ade Mara seems like a really difficult thing to do, and he forces a turnover right there. I think he's gotten more nimble and quicker since his UCLA and even like Spanish youth days, where he's pretty upright and he's going to like lose the leverage battle just because of his height, right? That's inherent for a guy of his stature, but he can really open his hips. He's disciplined here, stays down, and doesn't jump until he needs to, and then he blocks this shot easily. Just so good absorbing this blow, and he's not crazy strong, but he's definitely gotten stronger, and he can absorb this chest bump, keep his balance, and then again, we see that left-handed block right there, and that's another example where you can tip it off the rim. And again, he just got an unlucky bounce there, but Mara's been an exceptional rim protector to begin the year, and we've talked about like the really sky-high turnover numbers, but we can also talk about the really sky-high block numbers. I think he is, 7th in the nation so far among high major players. 13 block rate. That is ridiculous. And once again, you definitely see that on tape. And this is where the added mobility shows up. And I am just so impressed to see Mara moving like this. Mara. I think it's Mara, and I just keep saying Mara. But he's a little out of position here. There's 3 seconds left on the shot clock, mind you. So Mara opens his hips to turn and chase to the left. He flips his hips open with like 1-2 fluid steps to stay in front. Cadeau saves that play from behind, but Mara was in perfect position to make that stop even if he did. And this added mobility has allowed him to defend higher towards the level of the screen and drop coverage, where like he's not going to be a guy who you have to park in the paint. He can actually play a little bit higher to the level, which I think separates him from a lot of really, really tall players like Zach Edey, who I think he definitely shares a lot of similarities with. I think he's potentially more mobile than a guy like Walker Kessler even. And man, his length and again, his timing, his hand-eye coordination on these shot blocks is all really, really impressive stuff. And again, constant domination from Mara in this Wake Forest game. I think his discipline looks excellent right now. He has like a positive block to foul ratio. I think 17 blocks, only 15 fouls committed. A lot of players, they jump right here instinctively when they see the drive at them, but Mara knows that the ball is going here, flips his hips, absorbs the chest bump, blocks the shot, and tips the ball around once again. So he is absolutely cooking with his discipline, and of course he's going to finish the play here once again, showing off his lateral quickness, where the defender loses, or the offensive player loses the ball there. But Mara is definitely quicker and more nimble than he. This was the funny play where Mara is clearly used to FIBA rules still, where he can goaltend off the rim. You can see my guy Juke Harris, who I love, is like, what on earth is he doing? Yeah, you can't do that. And, his positioning isn't always perfect in drop coverage. He's definitely going to have to keep improving on that. And when teams can pull him away from the paint, he's definitely not as effective. Like, he's not one of these Alex Sarr, Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, hyper-mobile perimeter centers, where if you have to make him, like, use a spacing big to pull him out on the perimeter and then make him cover big space, like, he's going to lose a foot race to most perimeter players. And it's just, again, he's still able to get a pretty decent contest, but he fouls right there. That's a great finish too. But in high level, playoff settings, I do think teams are going to look to exploit him in this way, as they do with a lot of 7'3", true 7'2" giants. But these kind of players are really in style right now. There are a lot of impactful 7'2" plus guys, these true tall outlier players, 5 guys right now really great in terms of EPM: KP, Wembanyama, Donovan Clingan, Zach Edey, Walker Kessler. A lot of two big lineups. A lot of these just really impactful tall players who do a lot of different things. And this is definitely a change from even like 6-7 years ago, where like 1920 or even like 18-19, only 2 players even on the leaderboard, and one was like Boban Marjanovic, a solid role player, where like peak pace and space era, it was more small ball than tall ball. But if you go back to like 2002, 2003, we see the same thing as now, where we have Sean Bradley, Arvydas Sabonis, Yao Ming, Gregor Sotakas, Jonas Ilgauskas, Dikembe, like definitely getting lower in the EPM there, but more big guys making an impact. I think Mara certainly fits with the NBA's trends right now. I don't like to draft guys and move guys up too much based on trends because of how cyclical the league is and how things are always changing and evolving. That's why this shit is so fun to me, right? Like, it's an always evolving, ever-changing puzzle that just doesn't have perfect, correct answers. But I think Mara is very good for the basketball being played today. I still do have questions with him in terms of, like, maintaining this high minute load and how he's, finishes off as a scorer, because I do think the scoring is still not to the level I'd like it to be. But man, he has such a unique intersection of skills with his defensive versatility at this point as a pick and roll defender, and his just really rare passing and ball skills. And he's an outlier, and I want to be betting on outliers, and I am going to be pretty high on Mara if he keeps playing like he's playing. And if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. If you didn't enjoy this video, let me know as well. I appreciate all feedback, and I really appreciate everyone who took the time to watch this video.